Welcome to EBW Spotlight News. I'm your host, Donna Neester, and with me is Chief Pablo Mendoza from the U.S. Coast Guard station here in Port Huron. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you very much for having us, ma'am.
We are so lucky that you were here and talking to us because it's actually summer. Weather doesn't always show it, but it is summer. And with that comes so many water activities. And I know the Coast Guard is instrumental in keeping us safe on the water.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you share some of the things that the Coast Guard does and requirements for boating, like life vests?
Absolutely. Well, the summer, like you said, has started, so we want to make sure, our main concern is we want to make sure everybody's safe out in the water, everybody carries all the required equipment, and everybody has fun. Absolutely, that's everybody's main concern. There's a lot of boating traffic already, a lot of people fishing, a lot of people doing activities. So we want to make sure everybody has fun in a safe manner. So every boat has to have a Coast Guard approved life jacket for everybody on the vessel. So they make sure that before they get underway, everybody has to have one life jacket per person. So that's one of the requirements that we make sure that they have to have. We also recommend some other things, like not everybody has a marine radio, but we recommend everybody to have that, maybe a GPS as well. So in case there's an emergency, they could actually call the Coast Guard and let them know their location and the type of distress that they're having. So we recommend that as well.
Oh, that's terrific.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the services that the Coast Guard provides is safety check on vessels.
It is. Actually, the Coast Guard Auxiliary and the Power Squadron are the two entities that actually provide those services, and they're great. This gentleman pretty much volunteer their time to provide those services for the U.S. Coast Guard, and what they do is they actually check everybody's vessel that is going through that program, and they'll go from bow to stern, and they make sure that all the safety equipment is on board. So in case So whenever the boater actually goes out in the water, they have everything they're required to have for their safety, and not only that, but to make sure that they don't get any types of fines from state or local or federal law enforcement agencies for not having their equipment. So that's very important. So we definitely we recommend everybody to go through that process, and it's pretty easy. You just go online, and there's a phone number that they could call and just research it online, and they'll find the closest person that actually does that to them.
Is there a common element that's often missed by boaters when those safety checks are completed?
Whenever we complete safety checks, a lot of times some people don't have the throwable, which is one of the requirements that they're supposed to have. Sometimes they don't have that. Sometimes their equipment is outdated, so it's past the requirement that is needed. Sometimes also, like for example, their fire extinguisher is not mounted in a proper place, or their equipment is not readily accessible. And what good use is that if it's not readily accessible? You have an emergency, your boat starts taking on water, you can't get to it. So it's very important that everything is ready to go.
Well, it sounds like a terrific service that through the auxiliary and the power squadron that's provided to boaters. And we're going to take a break and hear from our sponsors that's providing today's Spotlight News. And when we come back, we'll hear more from Chief Mendoza on boat safety and some of the Coast Guard requirements.
Hi, I'm Jeff Wine with Joanne Wine & Associates. We've been serving homeowners in the St. Clair County community since 1986. The Blue Water area offers many waterfront housing choices and price ranges along our beautiful waterways. The unique homes for unique people like you!
Welcome back to EBW TV Spotlight News. Chief Mendoza from the Port Huron U.S. Coast Guard Port Huron Station is with us today. Before the break, we were talking about making sure your boat was safe. In the paper, I've read recently that there's been changes in the legal alcohol limit of pilots of boats or captains. Can you enlighten our guests?
Yeah, so Michigan recently, within this year, they changed their law. So the BAC went from 0.1 to 0.08. Pretty much the rest of the United States actually has that law already. So we recently went to that, and that kind of lets boaters know that we are very serious about enforcing boating under the influence, and it's a very dangerous thing to do. Some people think it's not as dangerous on the road, but that is incorrect. Due to the boat moving and the sun and dehydration and everything, that alcohol actually hits you a lot faster. So It is said in 2014, about 21% of Coast Guard recorded vessel fatalities were actually due to alcohol consumption. So we definitely want to make sure everybody's safe on the water.
So that's such a good point, and to reinforce the legal limit for alcohol is the same as if you're driving a car.
That is correct.
Great. If we mentioned keeping things safe, what if the Coast Guard should stop us and want to board our vessel? What happens?
That's a great question. So pretty much the Coast Guard under the 14 U.S.C. 89, the Coast Guard could stop any vessel that we have jurisdiction under to make sure you comply with federal laws and regulations. So that means mainly they're going to be checking your safety equipment to make sure that you're safe to be out in the water. That is different from maybe some state or local partners. They actually need reasonable suspicion or probable cause to stop your vessel. We do not. So we're just there to get on your boat and make sure that we do a safety check. So what they're going to be checking for is life jacket, sound producing device, flares if you require. They're going to be checking, it all depends on the size of your vessel and what the requirements for your vessel are. That's what we're looking for. So at the end of the boarding, if you had everything completed, if you had everything in proper order, you actually get a copy, which we call the gold copy, and you kind of get to keep that. And it doesn't mean it's going to stop someone to board you again, but it might actually make the process a lot faster, or if it's within recent time frame, then they might not even board your vessel. So definitely is a good thing to have.
So reinforces the need for boat safety checks. So
Yes,
you're
it
all
does.
set to
Yes, it
go.
does. Once again, we recommend that for everybody. And if they do get those vessel safety checks and everything is within compliance, they actually get a sticker issued to them that they could actually display on their boat when Coast Guard or maybe some other agencies, but mainly Coast Guard, we arrive on scene and we see that you have that within a recent amount of time. Most of the time, they're not going to be going through your vessel again.
That is terrific.
Yes.
Before we actually started the interview, you told me about a new app for the Coast Guard, which just looks phenomenal.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell everyone about the Coast Guard app?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this app was actually made by the Coast Guard and a partnering agency. It's somebody called Basta Ya. It was another company that actually made the app free for the Coast Guard. And it's a great app. What it does is you could actually log into this app, and if you have any type of emergency out in the water, the app, you make it call the Coast Guard, and it will call the Coast Guard district, or it will call the Coast Guard sector nearest to you, and you could let them know your emergency. It could have your latitude and longitude position for that agency, so they could actually respond to anything faster. There's other things in there, such as you could put a float plan in there, which is a great thing to have whenever you go out in the water. You could also report any type of discrepancy with any aids to navigation team. You could also check your safety requirements for your vessel. So all you need to put is, my vessel length is this type and that type, and it will tell you exactly what you need to have for safety equipment. So that's a great tool to have.
So we definitely want to recommend that all boaters, and even those who are passengers on
Yes.
boats, download the app.
It's not to replace Channel 16 or anything like that. It's always good to have a radio, an ePerv maybe, but it's definitely a great app to have.
Terrific. You have provided us with so much great information on water safety and boating. So we're off to a great summer.
Hope so.
Thank you for
Let's keep it
joining
safe,
us.
right?
Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
That concludes today's segment of EBW Spotlight News. Please tune in again to see what else is happening in our community.